Alicia, right?
Yes, yeah.
Alicia Wolverton. Welcome to the local church and welcome to our community. It is so good to be with you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm on the West Coast still, so it's about 8
Oh,
in the morning. So
I didn't even know that.
yeah, got the full like morning energy right now. So I
Yeah.
want
Have you been on the West Coast this whole time?
no, I actually once the semester was over at Duke, I came home for a little bit just to kind of decompress after a
Yeah.
crazy year because it's pandemic and it's just strange. So yes.
So where on the West Coast are you?
Yeah, so I am in Newberg, Oregon right now.
Okay.
The George Fox University. So I'm like weirdly that's in Newberg. So I'm like
Hmm.
on my college campus from like last year, but like not here. So
Okay. And are you from Oregon originally?
yeah, so I'm from Southern Oregon originally, the Grants
Okay.
Pass area. So I've moved from like Southern Oregon to Northern Oregon. So Northern Oregon is home now. Just
Okay. Cool. And what did you went to George Fox? What did you study at George Fox?
yeah, I was an English major, and then I had a minor in psychology.
Okay. Cool. So you went from the West Coast to the East Coast to North Carolina. Was that like a seismic shift for you? Like, was it a hard move? Like, what was that like for you? Especially in the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was just I cannot speak to how crazy it was just trying to like coordinate like how to get a car across the country and also like all of your belongings and
Yeah.
not knowing, just the pandemic stuff feels like the rug's going to get pulled out from underneath you. But yes, I think other than having to learn a new language, which being in seminary, I did have to learn,
Yeah.
it felt like moving to a different country. It's just
Hmm.
so I've never lived on the East Coast, so it's been good, but it has definitely been one of those moves where everything's uncomfortable for quite a
Hmm.
while.
Do you like North Carolina?
I'm adjusting to it.
Are you adjusting to the pollen? I don't know. Is that like was that a huge thing for you?
Yes, pollen. I'm not allergic, thankfully.
That's
I
good.
can't imagine if I was, but yeah, the pollen was wild. Also, humidity is not a thing on the West Coast,
Mm,
so July and August last year were rough. That's just
yeah.
I love being outdoors, but when the outdoors are that hostile to your well-being, it's
Hmm.
just different. But
And what do you think of Durham? Durham is pretty cool. I
yeah,
like it a lot. I've been there for a year, but what's your first take on Durham?
yeah, super fun. I feel like I wasn't a foodie before, but I'm like
Hmm.
becoming one just because there's so many places to eat. Um, yeah, I've really enjoyed, I think, just kind of being able to walk around downtown and there's just
Yeah.
so much to do. It's like coffee and little parks and kind of finding little places just to hang out has been really fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great. So, Alicia, you're going to be a pastoral intern at the local church this summer. So, first of all, what brought you to seminary? I know that's like a question that a lot of people ask, and it's sometimes it's hard to answer, but sometimes it's really easy. Like, what brought you to Duke Divinity?
Yeah, I put it in the hard to answer box. So luckily, I've been asked quite a few times at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think as I was finishing up undergrad, I'm a first gen college student. So
Okay.
just categorically, education is kind of like I'm paving a new way in my family. I don't have a lot of role models in my like familial growing up space that were
Mm-hmm.
saying like go to college or do this. So kind of getting to the end of college was like I don't know what to do after this. I don't have any role models. So I had a couple people that I met in undergrad that had gone to seminary and just spoke so highly of it just as a
Mm-hmm.
formational process. And even if it doesn't directly translate into a vocational process, I think the space that kind of even just unpacking the theology that some of us have grown up with our whole
Yeah.
lives, being involved in the church is really impactful. So, in my own story, I think being at divinity school has largely just been kind of healing um, some church pain that I had in my
Yeah.
past. Also, just getting like a education informed theological foundation has been really important in this process. So,
No, yeah, that's good. You're not alone in that church pain. I'm sure that as we move forward in this internship, we'll talk about that some more. But a lot of people come to seminary with a lot of hurt and a lot of questions and a lot of frustrations. With, did you grow up in the church? Like, did you grow up going to church or anything like that?
I did. I was a church hopper. So I feel
Okay.
like growing up, I went to about 10 to 15 different churches.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much involved in that.
So you're a MDiv student, right? Master's in Divinity? Cool. And if you had to do, like, I know you have 3 years to figure it, well, 2 years now because you finished your first year. Congrats. You have time to figure out what you want to do, but what are some things that you hope to do with the MDiv degree?
Yeah. One thing that has kind of been part of both undergrad and now grad school is involved in residence life.
Mm-hmm.
So this year I've lived on Duke's campus and worked with some of the undergrads there. So I'm hoping afterwards to transition to kind of a residence life higher ed position for a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. I think just because that's been where a lot of doors have been opening recently. So kind of starting in that basis just to have like a foundation, but I would really love to work in kind of a nonprofit setting.
Yeah.
In the Portland area of Oregon, there's a lot of opportunities within the city to work with people. So that's kind of my hope, I think, is to go from like a higher ed space to like be able to transition into nonprofit, like community organizing, community building
Yeah.
programs.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. And especially with, 2020 and how that year just went, there are going to be tons of opportunities. And there are right now for a lot of like cool community organizing and stuff like that. That's great. So we've been in this pandemic world for a year now, and so many things have adjusted, and we're doing things new. We're rethinking old things, and one of the things that's changing a ton is how we worship. So local church, we used to be in person. We used to be meeting in the tasting room of a brewery. It was really cool, and now we are online, which is just as great. It's awesome. People are loving it. But in your experience and from what you've seen, what do you think the church has learned over this last year?
Yeah, absolutely. In kind of reflecting on this question, I was reminded of some of the early pandemic days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in that space when we were kind of like, oh, it's just going to be a month or it's going to be a couple months or like 6 months at most was kind of the,
Isn't that wild?
yeah. And now we're
Like,
like here a year later.
yeah.
But I think just experiencing some people in that space that were, to use kind of an image, like pounding on the church doors of like, let's
Mm-hmm.
get back as soon as we can. Like, let's, miss as little in person gathering as possible. And I think what others that have kind of like settled into the space of like, this has actually completely changed our habits of worship. It's
Mm-hmm.
changed maybe our ideas of what we need in worship or how we best connect with the divine. I think for the people that have really settled into that space of letting some things die and kind of go through the process
Mm-hmm.
of like reconstruction and using the death of habits and like
Yeah.
form as a way of initiating into something new. I think something really beautiful that's come out of that is people, forming home churches or finding kind of communities within their neighborhoods, like their actual
Yeah.
home, people living next to them. I think in the community space, it's looked like, with all that 2020 held for racial reconciliation and learning about
Mm-hmm.
systemic racism, I think it caused people to look inward at the church and kind of try to see, what are ways that we've participated in this, and
Mm-hmm.
what are structures that have not been inviting to my next door neighbor because, we are so involved in the systemic, community as far
Yeah.
as the in the country. So yes, I think the piece that I feel like has really allowed people to grow is just letting some things die and actually going through the pain of that process instead of trying
Mm-hmm.
to like launch into like, let's get back to where we were, but kind of saying this is where we are and it's really hard, but like how can we move forward better and together.
Yeah. That's really good. So now that we're kind of, I don't want to say we're like at the end of the pandemic just because we lifted the mask mandate, but there's still a lot of coronavirus floating around. It's still not safe. But as we are kind of like reopening and some things are looking to be a little safer than they were before, what opportunities do you think we still have as the church?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Even as it relates to like because you were talking about how last year kind of opened our eyes to a lot of like racial reconciliation stuff like that, like even opportunities in that realm this
Yeah.
as we like get back into person.
Yeah, I would say that's a big one. I think I will speak to my own context. I think having
Mm-hmm.
grown up in Oregon, it's a very white state through and through, and most of the churches that I grew up in were really white.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we kind of joke about like we haven't seen half of people's faces in the last
Yeah.
year. I think there's something in like taking off our physical masks of actually looking around us at the people that we are welcoming into our community and noticing like, is this a diverse community? Am I actually
Mm-hmm.
welcoming everybody? Why is it that everybody looks the same in this church? Or why is it that, people sit here instead of here? I think just like in a really, there's kind of the superficial level of taking
Yeah.
masks off, but I think there's that internal level too of looking at, who have I been surrounding myself with and who has the church been, welcoming, incorporating? How do my materials invite or not invite? So I think that's like a continued piece that I see of like, we've had maybe some things stripped away in the last year. How do we
Mm-hmm.
like going into that instead of just trying to like launch into something new, but like to keep
Yeah.
going deeper into that space?
That's true. It's something that's been said for a long time now. It's that Sundays are like the most segregated day of the week. And I think a lot of eyes have been open to the realities of that, especially in this last year. Um, and so, yeah, I hope that that's an opportunity that we can pursue. And I know the local church is also trying that. Like, we have the anti-racism task force, and, you know, we're trying. And a lot
Yeah.
of churches are trying, and I love that. Um, so, like, last question. I know you haven't, like, been exposed a ton to local church yet, but is this, like, your first church internship, like, pastoral internship?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So what are you like looking forward to this summer with TLC?
Yeah. I something that I think after meeting with Brent and kind of learning more about the local church, I love how creative this space is just with ideas and creating content for people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not had a church experience that is that open to like, yeah, let's
Mm-hmm.
do it, let's try it, let's dive into that. So I'm really looking forward, I think, to first of all meeting the community. I know that'll
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit weird with COVID, just still trying to
Yeah.
like do the dance between in person. But I think I'm really looking forward to getting to be immersed into a church community again, to get some context of the flow of things, but also leaning into that creative space of finding ways to connect people with the divine and in new
Yeah.
ways or different ways or maybe old ways too. I think is something I'm really really looking forward to.
Yeah. Um, I hope you find some comfort in the fact that your other intern is also like, dealing with a lot of church pain, and local church has been uh quite a healing space for me. And so I hope it's the same for you, and I hope that as you go through this process you learn new things and that you're challenged, and you will get angry. That's just the way internships go, but it's a great place. And finally, what is like your word for the community? What does Alicia have to say to TLC before she starts this journey with us this summer?
Oh, goodness.
Big question.
That is a huge question. I would say it's just a mutual sense of hospitality. I think
Mm-hmm.
I have both received welcome already that I've been super grateful. And I also want to offer my own hospitality to
Mm-hmm.
meeting with people as they reach out, or even just be able to create some spaces for people, whether it's outdoors or, coffee shops,
Mm-hmm.
just a sense of hospitality as we kind of navigate a new way of meeting and kind of leaning into that.
Yeah, you're into like hiking and stuff, right? Like I think whenever I friended you on Instagram or Facebook, like all your pictures were just you and other people hiking and stuff like that. So
I'm trying to hike a mountain tomorrow, so that's
what?
yes.
Yeah.
I love being outdoors.
So Alicia is going to start a hiking small group at TLC, and everyone is welcome to join. Right? Is that what you're gonna do?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Alicia Wolverton, it is so good to be with you, and we are very excited and can't wait for you to start. Thank you for being here.
Forward to it. Thank you.